Student protesters at Northwestern University shut down a sociology class after a professor invited a representative from ICE to speak to the class. The protesters claimed that speech could make some students feel uncomfortable, so it was shut down. All of this, as the school's president says, free speech is not absolute. To talk about this morning, we've got the president of the Northwestern College Republicans, David Donnelly, and Public Relations Secretary of the Northwestern College Republicans, Sammy Quaddle. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you for having us.
All right, David, let's start with you. So this professor invited in wanted both sides of the story. So the first speaker was going to be this ICE agent who would talk about their mission, and the second guest was going to be somebody who is in this country illegally. What happened when the ICE agent was talking?
Essentially what happened was that several students on campus got together and they were upset that the ICE agent was coming. They felt that it threatened undocumented immigrants who were going to Northwestern or on Northwestern's campus. In reality, what it really was it was just a PR person for ICE. And
right.
What it was supposed to be was a two-day sort of seminar that was going on in a sociology class that would give the students two really great perspectives of basically what's going on in the immigration reform debate.
Surely, and apparently some had complained that the appearance by the ICE representative, Sammy, would make them feel unsafe, although I think the ICE representative probably felt unsafe because got a completely disrespectful reception from the class.
Exactly, and that's why Professor Redbird had really no other choice but to cancel the event at the end. You know, the protesters were making an unsafe environment for the students, for the professor, for the guest, and really this is a very troubling trend around the whole country, where universities are becoming less safe for freedom of speech and less safe for expression and different ideas, which is really, really disappointing.
It is disappointing. You go to colleges to hear all points of view. I mean, if you want to be in an echo chamber, that's easy. You can do it in your own basement. David, while they did shut down the ICE representative, your university had no problem inviting somebody who was convicted as a terrorist for killing two students when they hit a bomb. The organization hit a bomb in a box of candy. That person was able to speak on campus, weren't they?
Yes, they were invited by a student group on campus, and there was also a protest by Northwestern students on that same day also, but it was more akin to what we're used to at Northwestern, which is usually peaceful protests that do not have the objective of shutting down the event. A lot of students actually had a silent candlelight vigil outside of the building where it was being formed, and I think was a great example of a good form of protest because the speaker still got to speak. Right. Students who were in opposition to it were very clearly able to make their point, and freedom of speech basically won the day that day.
Speaking of, well, if you say so, but then I saw in the Wall Street Journal, apparently the president of Northwest said that the First Amendment, Sammy, the First Amendment is not absolute. When you heard that, did you think, wait a minute, what's going on? Where am I?
Yeah, you know, this is the same, you know, I love Morty, but at the same time, I think he's really wrong about this. You know, earlier in the year to the freshman class, he defended safe spaces. I think in a lot of ways the administration has been a little bit complacent. They haven't been very aggressive towards us or towards freedom of speech in general, but I think they can do a little bit more to defend it and at least tone down the extremism by, you know, this group of students.
Yeah.
And to, not to jump in here, but to be clear, President Shapiro actually was very clear on he condemned this specific incident. In the past, he said that freedom of speech is not absolute, and I think from his perspective, that's a lot of safety concerns come up in situations like this. But in terms of this specific ICE event, he's condemned it, and the university is actually opening an investigation.
Well, that's good, because you've got to be tolerant of all points of view, especially if they are in a safe space, simply speaking their mind. David and Sammy, we thank you very much for getting up so early today out there in Chicago. Thank you, guys.
Our pleasure. Thank you so much for having us.
You bet.